And here's how the Tennessee House of Representatives ended its legislative session.
All right, Representative Jones, what's your question for the clerk?
Thank you. I have a parliamentary inquiry with these new expedited rules and procedures that are happening. When would be this is to the clerk, to the parliamentarian. When is the appropriate time for me to make a motion of no confidence in Cameron Sexton as the Speaker of the House?
Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Speaker, as I stated when I got this question before, it would be unfinished business.
Is there a way for us to make sure that we have a vote of no confidence before adjourning and to have democracy play out on this House, or has the determination already been made that we're ending session without doing anything and not allowing members to voice motions that you've been informed of for days?
Representative Faison, for what purpose?
And the next purpose, of course, was to adjourn. The legislature then immediately voted on a motion to adjourn, which, of course, passed.
I hereby declare the first extraordinary session of the House of Representatives of the 113th General Assembly of the State of Tennessee sine die.
Joining us now is Tennessee State Representative Justin Jones. Thank you very much for joining us tonight after this another difficult week for you in the legislature. I want you to explain, if you can, to the audience some of what we just saw in that video on the House floor. At the end there seemed to be some physical bumping on the floor. Who was involved in that?
Yes, well, good evening, Lawrence. What you saw was chaos. The Speaker ended session in chaos, and he wants us to focus on that chaos because he does not want us to focus on the chaos in our classrooms, in our schoolhouses, in our universities, and grocery stores, the chaos of mass shootings. What happened was that the Speaker once again silenced any member from my caucus from speaking because they had an orchestrated, predetermined plan to end session, which means we don't return until January without hearing the voices of any other lawmaker. Because they were afraid of the movement, the people in the galleries, the mothers who came throughout the special session demanding common sense gun legislation to protect kids and not guns. And what you saw was a speaker who ran away from the people, who ran away from his colleagues, and who thinks that he's an authoritarian and who does not want to be held accountable by the public or by the legislative body of which he is a part.
What were some of the things that you were trying to accomplish on the House floor when you were silenced?
Well, days prior to this adjournment of session, I sent a letter to the House Speaker and every one of my House colleagues to let them know that I was going to call for a vote of no confidence in the House Speaker, Cameron Sexton. What we learned is that even Republicans were supportive of this call of a vote for no confidence because Cameron Sexton has led this state on the path of humiliation, failure, and authoritarianism. And people are tired. And rather than allowing that vote to play out, rather than allowing democracy to play out, Lawrence, the Speaker took the path of least courage, which was to have members of his leadership group motion to adjourn session until January so that they think that this pressure will die down. What we saw this session, Lawrence, was so abhorrent. We saw mothers sitting in committee silently with paper signs dragged out of committee by troopers. We saw the Speaker shut down half the gallery just for lobbyists. We saw the Speaker enact these asinine rules that you saw. I'm the only member who these rules were enforced against in terms of being silenced for up to a day. And the next offense, they said, I'll be silenced for 3 days. And then they said, if you speak out or turn again, you'll be silenced indefinitely. As a lawmaker, I'll be silenced indefinitely on the House floor in Tennessee, Lawrence. And this is what we're dealing with in this undemocratic body.
I want to listen to Sarah Newman, who testified to one of the subcommittees. She's a mother of a student who was at the Covenant School on the day of that horrible shooting. Her child wasn't one of the victims. Let's listen to what she had to say.
We held a special session following the extraordinary tragedy of a mass shooting that took place at the Covenant School. and yet we took no meaningful action. The divisiveness we have all witnessed makes us long for a unified community. Every legislator and constituent has a responsibility to cultivate this type of community. Those who are not of this mindset do not deserve a seat in the House or the Senate, and we will work towards ensuring every one of those seats is replaced by someone who has a true desire to listen to their constituents over firearm association lobbyists.
Representative Jones, what do Republicans say to a mother like that when she comes to testify?
They shut them down, Lawrence. Mothers like Sarah, like Melissa, like Mary Joyce, these mothers of the Covenant School deserve so much better. And some of them are Republicans, Lawrence. People like Melissa, who's a lifelong Republican, who we talked outside the chamber, and she pinned a ribbon that the mothers had made with the Covenant School colors and said, "Thank you for fighting for us." We saw Republicans saying that they're tired of the extremism from people like Cameron Sexton and William Lambert, the Republican majority leader, who refused to hear their cries, who had mothers dragged out of committee. What we saw was just so insulting to a grieving community, Lawrence. It was pain and trauma compounding itself, because many of these mothers went before committee. They put their hearts on that dais. They spoke to these members and shared one of the worst days of their life when their children were being terrorized by a mass shooter, and my Republican colleagues chose to ignore them, chose to silence them, chose to turn their backs on these mothers and these community members and shut down session. And all we saw this session was attacks on the First Amendment, was attacks on dissent, was about silencing voices. There was no focus on stopping mass shootings, no focus on stopping gun violence that is terrorizing our communities and taking the lives of 4 Tennesseans a day. It was horrible, and it requires us to go back now and say that when we come back in January, we must keep up the pressure. We must continue to disrupt, because democracy requires disruption, and that these mothers and these parents deserve so much better in a time like this. We saw what happened this week, Lawrence. We saw what happened in Jacksonville. We saw what happened at UNC. If we don't act in Tennessee, what happened at Covenant will happen again. And these mothers are trying to warn us and tell us that we have to do something to protect our kids and not guns, and stand up to the gun industry and the gun lobbyists who've bought my colleagues on the Republican side of the aisle.
Tennessee State Representative Justin Jones, you will never be silenced during this hour. Please come back whenever you can. Thank you very much for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Lawrence.
Thank you.